The May 30th meeting of the White County Board of Education to order. If you would, please rise, and Ms. Tracy Flower will lead us in a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all those in attendance tonight here in person, those that may be joining us on our live stream. Appreciate your interest in the White County school system, and as we consider items of the district tonight. Our meeting is being live streamed, and per state statute, all of our business conducted by the White County Board of Education follow the statutes. We conduct our business in public, and we have guidelines that we follow to do that. Tonight's agenda, as we look through the agenda, we have the main item of business is the approval of the fiscal year 2025 school budget. Along with that, though, we do have some travel requests that have been presented to us that are time-sensitive in nature, so those have been included in our agenda tonight as well. So this time, I would like to move to our fourth agenda item, and that is a disclosure of conflicts of interest. If there's any board member present tonight that has a conflict of business that that's being considered, please let that be known at this time.
Mr. Chairman, as I do each and every meeting, I have no conflict of interest, but just let the public record show that my wife is an employee of this district, and all the items that you'll hear from me tonight will be based on my research of our budget and the things that we're going through tonight. And just no conflict. Just want to make it aware that all the things that you hear from me will be of my own accord and what's best for the district and the students of White County.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Likewise, Mr. Chairman, I did owe Mr. McDonald down there, but also I have a wife and extended family members also in the school system. But conflicts or no conflicts, this is the budget, and everyone that works for the school system is getting paid through this budget. But I promise you, every one of my ideas, my facts, my knowledge, my comments will be solely upon no emotions, but just taking care of business tonight. That's my ability.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Howard. So please let the meeting reflect that both Mr. McDonald and Mr. Howard have advised us they do have spouses and other family members that are employed by the district, but nothing on our agenda tonight would constitute a conflict of interest that is as outlined in items that would be considered conflict. So with that, we'll move to the next item, and that is to approve our agenda for tonight's meeting. The agenda has been sent to you, been publicized. Board members have had the opportunity to review that, so at this time I'd entertain a motion for approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McDonald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fowler. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the fiscal year 2025 school budget. We actually have two items under that, two budgets under that agenda item, and that is one, the approval of the cafeteria fund budget, and then our general purpose school fund budget. Please, as a board, what I'd like to do is like for us to take these items up separately. We will start with the cafeteria fund, and then we'll move on to the general purpose school fund. So that's how I plan to proceed with that. That's everybody's in accordance with that. Okay. So cafeteria fund budget was presented to us on Tuesday night, and it outlines the estimated revenues and the estimated expenditures for the upcoming year. Breakdown of line items under account code 73,000, excuse me, and the line items listed there for food service and for our district. So is any information needed from the board members before we consider action on this budget? Okay. Hearing none then, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Central Cafeteria Fund for fiscal year 2025 as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. McDonald. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Fowler. Discussion.
I guess I have one question directed, I don't think Ms. Savage is here, but maybe Mr. Markham, you can answer this. I know I see that we're going to run at a deficit or under budget or under funded on for like $383,000 for the 24-25 year. Is that typical that we run a little higher on our budget, or if we're going in the hole a little bit just because of the commodities and the price fluctuation with all the food that we have?
The 383 number is a little bit higher than normal, but in our typical scenario, we kind of in the same position that we are with the General Purpose School Fund, and we've always been able to put that funds in school nutrition. This year's budget, fiscal year 24's budget, you can see there we had a $268,000 deficit projection. I don't expect us to meet that. We may be about even. At worst, we might be about $100,000 deficit, but
Okay.
we're at a $2 million fund balance.
Yeah.
And they have a required fund balance minimum if the state does, and if you're over that, then you have to have a plan on how to spend that fund balance.
So what is the state's minimum fund balance?
I think it's 3% of
Okay.
expenditures over a certain period of time. So we're well over that, and so we have to present a plan every year to the state Department of Education
Okay.
on how that gets spent.
Okay.
But to answer your question, it is a little bit higher than typical, but
And I guess that's to be expected with the rising price of
It is.
everything.
it is, and we're going. We've just had half a year with the high school being CEP, and so not having the full year of trend on that is also we're being pretty conservative on those projections as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I was to ask right here, if we're $100,000 in the debt at the end, in the deficit in the end of the year, where will we get that money?
It comes out of the school nutrition as a $2 million fund balance, or started fiscal year 24 with a $2,068,228 fund balance, and so that would just roll out of that. So it'd end the year at 1.9 million.
Is that included or separate from the general purpose fund?
That is separate.
It's separate.
It's kept separate.
Okay.
Those funds can only be spent on school nutrition.
And I guess if I'm asking a follow-up to that, school nutrition is all federal money, right? Is that correct, or
For the
is?
most part, there's some local money in there, but the vast majority is federal.
Okay. Would you say 75-25, 80-20, 90-10?
Yeah, and the local money's based off of the generation of services.
Okay.
So it's not local tax money, it's local money as in adults. If you went to the high school and paid and had lunch with somebody, you would pay, and that would be.
Okay, okay.
It's kind of a business generation.
So, if you could, just for clarity and just make sure that public knows that what we're considering. The total expenditures for cafeteria fund for 2025 that's being proposed, these are budgeted numbers, not actual numbers, but $3,558,609 with that estimated revenue opposite side page, estimated revenue of $3,175,000. So that we are going into the year with an estimated overage on expenditures of $383,609. Last year, we went in with for 2024, we went in with a budget of overage of $268,681. But in fiscal year 2023, the department was able to put back $93,018, and that's the trends of what we're looking at actual current year budget and the proposed budget for the upcoming years. So,
If I could, I want to correct something. I said 80% is 3 months average
Oh,
expenses.
okay,
That has to
okay.
be kept.
Okay.
My apologies.
and just so, again, for the record, any overages in the cafeteria funds can only be spent on cafeteria expenses, and any surplus in that, we do have to have a corrective action to get that down, because the intent is that fund has is a zero balance budget versus expenses at the end of the year. So, okay, any other questions, discussions?
Mr. Markham, you said that account had a $2 million surplus, and we have to spend that, or do we have so many years to spend it down?
We have to submit a plan of how we're going to spend it. So each year, that plan can change based on where it's at. So you have to submit a plan of action of how you're going to do that. And we try to work that. We've bought lots of equipment and stuff, and we've just been fortunate with some of our other expenses. So it's just a plan that has to be submitted.
Gotcha.
And those would come to us as budget amendments for those expenditures?
Yes.
Okay, so board would know that plan and would know the financial transactions that are taking place. Okay, good discussion. What else? Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. No further discussion, then we'll vote. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you. And thanks for those that worked on getting the nutrition budget together. All right, so next we'll be considering approval of the General Purpose School Fund 141. Before we get into that, just want to make sure that everybody saw and understand the adjustment that was made since our last meeting on the 28th. The administration, those that are working on our budget, for budgeting purposes, they use round numbers, or they have some accumulation of number rounding, and when Mr. Markham gets that final, he has to come in and make those dollars all balance out. So this total adjustment, it actually reduces the proposed budget by $4,534. That's what we're adjusting down from what was presented to us Tuesday night. Is that correct?
For that much in the revenue section.
It's revenues.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's revenue,
Reducing revenues.
The revenues.
reducing the revenues. Okay, so we're reducing the revenues by $4,534. So that's the only adjustment that has been made from what we were presented with on Tuesday night. So sure everybody's aware of that as we go into this approval. Are there any other questions that any board member has regarding information that was presented that you feel like we need to have? You need to get an answer before we would take up consideration for approval.
Mr. Chairman, since that's reducing revenue, has that increased the deficit, the difference
Yes.
by the same amount? Mr. Chairman, I want to ask a question how we got here,
To the,
where we're sitting at right now, tonight. I've asked for us to be involved in the budget ever since I've sat on this board, on a monthly basis, to understand these numbers. And so we sit here in front of a budget that we had no input in, and we're being asked to approve something that's $3 million in the deficit, knowing that we do have a fund balance that could take care of it, and possibly by the end of the year it will be different. This is an emotional problem that this board shouldn't have to have. Either let us be involved from the beginning, or don't ask us to make a decision like this right here. I've sat on boards before where heads of departments would bring us a budget like this right here, and we'd hand it right back to them and say, bring us a balanced budget. And there's people in the community that looks at us and says, that's what you ought to do. There's also teachers in this community right now are scared to death. They're going to be fired, going to lose their job, going to be cut out of a summer school teaching right now, and they're emotionally tore up. So my question is we're going to make a decision tonight, but how are we going to fix this in the future? Are we going to sit here next year with the same possible scenario, or are we going to start having budget meetings? Or are we going to just say, whoever created this budget, it's yours? If we vote this budget tonight, the teachers and everybody will be happy. But what about the people that pay the taxes? Will they be happy? Or is this just a ploy or question, a ploy? I'm saying this stuff, I'm not mad, I'm not upset, I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I'm not trying to be ugly, I'm just simply asking questions. Is this because we potentially have an increase in sales tax coming up and we won't get the word out there, ooh, the school's in trouble, everybody's scared, everybody's feared, well, it'll pass. So putting all those questions out there, why should we be sitting here with all these questions?
so.
There's not an
Would you-
answer. There's not an
I mean, I don't mind to give you my perspective on that, if that would, if you'd like to hear it.
Will this be different next year?
So, if you'd like me to give you my perspective on that.
Sure.
So, historically, and Mr. McDonald, you've been more tenured than me on the board. Historically, from a district standpoint, the administration, along with our fiscal agent, Mr. Chad Martin, they go through the line by line to create the budget based on the services that we are delivering, have delivered, and plan to deliver in the future, whether it's by choice or by mandate. And so they go through and look at the delivering of services, which would consist of personnel and materials going directly to the students, and then the administrative support, which would be required to provide the facilities for that learning to take place. And so the line items on the budget are very consistent year over year from the standpoint of the general purpose fund to deliver that education. And we've been fortunate in the past, we have not had any threats to our funding mechanisms. It has been very much understood through the BEP formulas, through the local county match, and where the revenues come from. Mr. Drombarger started bringing this to our attention about 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, about the top of the state coming in and changing formula for funding education, which they did, which allowed us to pass on salary increases and changing salary structures to our teachers, and under a new formula, which we were able to do. However, that was the positive of that legislation and that change going into effect. The other impact, though, is the unknown that it was not necessarily being new. there was always the question of what risk would that have, how would that impact funding, and now we are just starting that season of seeing how we are going to be impacted. So to your point about how we come in next year with a better understanding, it's a good point. And what we as a board, I think, need to make sure as we go through the upcoming year that we are setting aside purposeful time to have those that are instrumental in putting this budget together come and share with us so we understand what they're going through. As a board member, I do not feel that I have the ability to come in and scrutinize every revenue and every expense, because not knowing the details of how that money's spent and where that goes, it would be foolish of me to try to put too much influence on how those monies are spent. We have professionals that are hired to do that, carry out that task. Again, with the guidance of our director, Ms. Alley, Mr. Markham, to know the details of what these line items are going for to deliver that education. In my opinion, they're the best qualified to put that information together, and they have brought to us the good and the bad. They brought to us the position where the district's facing, and then we as a board, our input is what we do with the deficits, and we're very fortunate that as Mr. John Barger has expressed to us, that we are in a position financially where we can weather the storm with the intent that we start educating ourselves of how we prepare for the budget for 2026. So that way, whenever there is, from a grant side, we can look at grants differently. We can go back and look at grants from the standpoint of saying, hey, if we apply for a grant, let's apply for one more position in hopes that would help us navigate through some challenges that might have from a budget deficit. So the other thing that I think is evident in where we're at now is, as a board, I left Tuesday night, as a board member, realizing that when state has input on how federal monies are distributed across the state, if we and our representatives, our senator and our local representatives, if they are not lobbying for us, our district, on how that money is to be distributed, if we're not having a voice there in Nashville, somebody else will, and somebody else will leverage monies that ultimately there's one pot of money, and you can ask and get, and if you don't ask, you might not get. That might be taken from your pot. So from a board standpoint, yes, going in, if you're talking about what can we do to address some of these challenges, we can encourage alternative sources of revenue, and we can certainly make it a conscious effort to engage with our state and local representatives to lobby for that money and the funding that we get for our district. That's what we can do in preparing us for situation next year. But along from now until then, more emphasis needs to be looked at where funding comes from and how we address it when funding gets cut for the coming year, and we're continuing to try to provide the same services. In a business, if you were running short on your margins, what do? One of the things you do is you go out and try to find more customers, and you go to your funding source. That's probably a concept as a board we're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to, because as far as the overall budget increase, it seems in line with year over year of what we would expect from inflation plus salary adjustments that we've made. So, sorry, Mr. Howard, that's a long-winded answer, but I'm trying to give a perspective. That's all I'm trying to do.
Can I respond, or you want to wait till everybody else says something?
We'll finish yours up, and then we'll just continue around the table. Yes.
Well, I don't know if I can finish it up with this comment right here, but I agree with you 100%. I don't know enough about this budget to take away anything or add anything to it. That can be fixed or helped with some monthly budget meetings to really dig in and say, hey, this figure right here, that we've got a direction going in this right here, we need to understand, we don't want to get caught at the end of the year like we did last year, okay? We need to start being proactive instead of sitting here twiddling our thumbs right now. And once again, the bottom line is, no matter who developed this right here, they could have done the hardest work, and I compliment them. There's a lot of figures right here. It's a lot of hard work right there. Got 2 people that do it full time, okay? And they're good at it. Y'all are good at it. But once we vote tonight, we own it. Good or bad, right or wrong, we own it. We're responsible. We're responsible to the community to go out there and explain to them what we did. So I still say, well, I'd hand it back and say, I want a balanced budget. I'm not going to cut anything. I'm not about to say, hey, we're going to cut one thing out of it, okay? That's putting us in between a rock and a hard place. But then again, I say yes on this right here, and we have people from the community that we're supposed to be stewards of the public trust come to us and say, how in the world did you pass a budget of $3 million or $2 million over? And you probably going to do it again next year? You know, I don't know. What do you say to people like that?
I think you have to try to explain to them the situation we're faced with. You know, we're trying to deal with what we've been handed. We've been handed, and it has nothing. You know, the administration didn't overspend to cause us to be in a deficit, and I want to commend you guys for doing that. You're putting money back in. We're projected putting money back in, and that's historically how we've operated as a district. We can't hold our administration accountable when revenues have been cut. What we have to do is understand that is the root cause, and we need to do everything within our power to see that we're lobbying for the revenues. That's all. And I agree, Mr. Howard. Like I said, I think in this upcoming 2025 session that we'll go through, I think you will see on agendas that we will need to be understanding the funding portion better, and I would totally agree with you on that.
Hopefully the spending also.
Well, we have the spending
I think one goes
outlined.
hand in hand.
I think you start with the revenue program.
Okay,
So-
I'm not trying to be argumentative.
I know,
I
you're
just wanted-
expressing, and I appreciate that.
And I'm concerned.
I
I'm
understand.
concerned.
I understand.
So I want our schools to be progressive. I want them to be the best funded we can afford. I think there's a lot of activities out there in our schools that other schools don't have, and I hope they continue to be funded. But, you know, they all come with a cost. And so just as long as we understand, would we have, I don't even call out, we've got 2 or 3 big projects. I don't know if they could even that money could have even been diverted a little bit or not. Because it come through TISA, a lot of it, and come through ESSER, and come through a lot of other programs like that, that it can't go back for just county general, or general, not county general, general fund purpose. But next time we have a big expenditure come through, and I said, wow, $500,000, could we have done any better than that? Maybe we need to stop and say, hey, let's put a cap on it. Let's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally understand.
enough said.
Yeah.
We could nitpick this to death right here tonight, but we've got a decision, and
I understand.
it's hard.
Appreciate that. Ms. Stone, go to you next.
Uh,
Do you feel?
I'm not willing to cut anything, and like you say, I think we're just gonna have to go with this with knowing that we'll probably have to tighten our belt next year.
And I apologize, I led with the question, and I'm okay with y'all, if the board's okay having some of this discussion that would probably be more followed after a motion. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with it, but do you feel like you got the information that
Yes.
you needed? Okay, and I appreciate it. If you want to elaborate on that comment, feel free. I don't want to cut you off.
I'm definitely am willing to pass this budget, but like I said, we may have to look at long-term projects that we might not can afford,
No.
that we may have to tighten up on.
Pre-
But right now, this is our best options to pass it.
Appreciate that perspective. Ms. Fallon? Do you have the information, did you have the information
I
that
got
you
the
need?
information, yes. It's just hard to swallow, and thank y'all. I mean, it's great, what y'all did. Do I think maybe, and this doesn't come from Mr. Howard, this comes from the meeting me and Sherry went to in Nashville, that we have to go to as a new board member. They talked about having a budget committee. And there was a bunch of them there, and I know some of them are against it, and that's okay, because we can agree to disagree. But I don't know, and I don't know if there's any way we could be more informed throughout the school year, maybe meet once a month, once every 2 weeks, something. But that's hard to swallow, being that negative. But, I mean, I know, we talked before the meeting that we're gonna look over it this year, and of course, if we've got to cut something, like Sherry said, tighten our belts up, and, put our overalls on and put our hands in there and get dirty. So, that's all I
I
got.
like your plain talk.
I'm like, hey, whatever we got to do,
It-
I know, he don't know how to
Is
take
that a
me.
rarity around here? All right, Mr. McDonald, I digress. Let's move to Mr. McDonald.
So I'm gonna offer you just an outside perspective, being just somebody who is just sit and listen. I wrote down Tuesday night that 82% of our budget comes from the state. 18% comes from local funds. Less than 1% of our general purpose budget comes from the federal government. That's what we talked about on Tuesday night. And then we get 3/4 of the way into our budgeted year, and the state comes and says, "Oh, well, we figured your numbers wrong. We're going to cut your funding $200,000 or $400,000, whatever." That's hard to swallow. That's where we're at. We're dependent upon the state to give us the money to run this district. And we've had great administrations prior, starting with Mr. Haley, that is always, and even through this administration now, and we're putting $1.5 million back into our general purpose this year. Yeah, I know we're saying we're going to go $3 million in the hole right here, but did we say we was going to go $2 million in the hole last year? But we're putting $1.5 million back. So this is a hard pill to swallow. $3 million, that's more than a lifetime that I'll probably ever make. And I'm making a decision on it right here tonight of funding a school system that we're going to say we're $3.5 million or $3 million in the hole. But we have the money to cover that. And like everybody else has said, we're going to have to tighten up our belts. We're going to have to say, okay, do we really need this or whatever it comes down to. I don't want to cut anything. I think our teachers don't make enough money as it is. I would love to see our teachers every one of them be making 6 figures. Would love to see that, because they deserve it, because they're having to teach, and they're having to babysit, and they're having to pamper these children and take care of these children that are probably not getting taken care of at home. They're getting better treatment in our schools than they are at home in some spots. So I don't like the fact that we're $3 million in the deficit, but I don't think we have any other choice but to prove this budget to keep moving forward and take the knowledge that we have on this board and the new ones that are coming on in August, that we have to get in, tighten up our bootstraps, and go to work and get dirty.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Let's just make sure from the public standpoint to understand. A budget is just a planned expenditure. We're planning on this much revenue and we're planning on this much expense. But when you get into the actuals, that's the reason why we're presented with actual, original, and amended. It's not that we are saying we're going to purposefully end up negative $3.5 million in the hole next year. We haven't demonstrated that that's the way we operate in our district. What we're saying is we're going to start with this plan, and I have faith in our administration, our administrators, our director, our fiscal agent, and I have faith in this board that going into this next year, that now that we understand, to your point, we'll put our overalls on and we'll monitor this, but at the same time, I have to stress, Mr. McDonald, thank you for bringing up that point. The majority of our money comes from the state. We need to make sure they hear our voices because our district is exceptional. And in order for us to be able to keep it exceptional, we have to make sure that we're getting funded to provide the services based on the cost that today's market requires. Give us the funding, give us funding, and we will provide the service.
One other aspect of this, I reached out to a few people I know in surrounding districts. We have roughly 4,000 students. Warren County has roughly 6,000 students. You know how much their budget is for this next year? Just their school budget. And they don't have buses or nothing in theirs because that's contracted out to another service. $72 million. I can't imagine, and I don't know if they're going in the hole or if they've got a fund, what their fund balance is, but that's just blows my mind to know that there is a $72 million budget in a county adjacent to ours, and we're working on 40. That blows my mind at the money that flows through the Upper Cumberland. You go north, it's 3 times ours. You go north of ours, they're $123 million. So we've got a good administration. We've got a good board. I think this is an exceptional school district that will only grow from this.
I trust.
Yeah. I think this is going to be fine. I mean, there's liable to be some that we get back next year, you know. Everything works out as it's supposed to.
So, Mr. Dromberger, is there anything you'd like to say to?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I don't disagree with anything that I've heard, and I don't take anything as argumentative or insulting. I'm as disappointed at where we are at this point as anybody, but ultimately I'll take the responsibility for where we are. I do think it was call it a perfect storm of unfortunate situations where our TISA funding was not as transparent as maybe we thought it would. We're not even through a full year of TISA funding yet. We're still getting estimates of what it's going to be for next year. So that was a difficult thing for us all to navigate. Then with that new funding, there was more money, but came mandates that we had to use the money for. For example, 4 teacher raises, which we were more than happy to do. And our staff raises, and this board all supported those raises, and we all agreed. But they gave us more money, but then said, here's where you have to spend it. So it wasn't that we could just take it and put it into projects or other things. Then you couple that with the fact that federal programs have cut significant amounts for our money at the same time that our special ed numbers continue to rise. And so that puts more pressure on the general purpose budget to pick up that difference. We've also seen the state cuts that we mentioned that just came out of the blue. We had 2 of those that both were over $200,000 apiece, where they just said, we're changing the formula and you have to adjust for it. You know, and then the rising cost just in general of everything that it costs to do business. So all these together, and the timing is very poor in the sense that here we are now, and we've all sat in these meetings and listened to the budget reports and saying that we're on track. But as these things have come down the stretch and made changes, now we are at a time where we have to approve a budget, and our choices are either back up and regroup and approve a budget that's going to give us time to make educated decisions, or just start slashing things in order to make a balanced budget. I appreciate your approach here. I think we all understand that we're buying time. And to your point, Mr. Howard, I agree. What do you say to taxpayers? First thing I say is thank you. Thank you for supporting our school system and being there for us. But secondly, trust our system, because I think this school, or not just me, but going back, previous administrations have proven to this county that we're going to be fiscally responsible. I don't recall a time that we've ever stood in front of our county commission and said we need more money, because we've always supported our school system based on the revenues that we had. What we're saying here is that because we've done so well with money over the years, we can weather this storm this year, and then give us the opportunity to regroup and make educated decisions so that we're not here next year. Even if those are very difficult decisions that we have to make, we've proven that we can make those decisions and be fiscally responsible so that we're not in a position where we are asking for more money. Would it be too much for me to read what I shared with the board as far as our plan moving forward?
Absolutely.
So that could
Absolutely.
be on the record.
Yes.
I'd just like to share that this is what I sent to board members in case you didn't see it today. But board members, I'm going to ask you to step out on faith and approve the budget as presented to you at the meeting last night, or excuse me, on Tuesday night. White County Schools has a track record of producing and executing school budgets that meet our needs and continue to grow our savings. I understand that meeting this budget will be a challenge, but in my opinion, to make drastic cuts at this point would be uninformed and premature. By approving this budget, we are certain that our district can and will provide the same level of quality education and service to our students, staff, and community. Furthermore, it will provide us with valuable time to study the situation and prepare a strategic plan for fiscal adjustments in subsequent years. This will involve dedicated conversations and feedback from all stakeholders, culminating in research-based options for budgetary consideration. Additionally, we will have another year to seek additional funding sources, grants, and to lobby legislators to address our specific needs here in White County. Lastly, because of our long history of being fiscally responsible, we have the opportunity to take this educated approach. Our healthy fund balance provides us with both insurance and assurance. And as director, it's my recommendation that the board would approve this fiscal year 25 general purpose school budget as presented. That's our plan moving forward. I don't want to be here. None of us want to be here, and I want to work really hard and make educated decisions to make sure that we're not here in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. And I think from the just to make sure from the community standpoint, Mr. Howard, what you say to the community. We are not asking the community to do anything other than what they are mandated to do by the laws that are in effect for funding. We're not asking their percentages to change any. It's whatever the county's responsibility for to the school system are. Those percentages remain unchanged. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Markham. The county's percentages are not changing, so we're not asking them more than what they're otherwise obligated to do. From a state standpoint, that's again that's a different audience that we need to be talking to. All right, good comments. Thank everyone for that. So with that, everybody has been informed, everybody aware of the adjustments to what was presented to us on Tuesday night. We have the budget in front of us, and we will be considering this, and our action budget will then go to the county commission for their review and approval. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the 2025 White County School General Purpose Fund budget for that year.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. McDonald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fowler. Further discussion? Okay, we will do a roll call vote, and start to my right, Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Yes.
Stone, Mr. Howard.
Pass with option to change.
Okay. So I have 3 yeses, pass. My vote would be yes, approve. So with that, 4 votes constitutes a majority, so the budget will pass. Okay. Thank everybody for their effort, and thank you to administration for your work in bringing this together. It's not easy, but your efforts do not go unnoticed and unappreciated. All right, board, next item on our agenda is approval of travel requests. We have 2 travel requests, one for White County Archery, one for White County School basketball.
Can I make a recommendation we do those together?
Okay, so have a request to approve both of those travel requests together. White County Archery, and where is the archery team going?
Archery's going to Florida, Daytona.
Did I
and
miss that?
Basketball is going, that's just for
Okay,
basketball.
all right, sorry, all right.
And basketball's going to Destin.
Okay, so archery team going to compete in the World Championships June 6th through 9th. So that's coming up pretty quick in Daytona. And then the White County girls basketball team is going to go compete in Destin, Florida, December 26th through 30th. That it's been requested that we approve those travel requests on the same motion. So this time I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Got
Have a motion by Mr. McDonald. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fowler. Discussion?
Board members, I'd just like to say, the reason these are coming before you, they have to have, obviously, one is happening before our next meeting, and the other one, they have to get a registration fee in at the 1st of June. So that's why they're coming in. You'll see the bulk of the other travel requests and fundraisers at the June meeting, regular June meeting.
That's the basketball. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, had several conversations with Coach Dodgen, and I really appreciate him sending this email to the entire board, or sending it via Mr. Drumbarger to the board, and it kind of explaining their trip. And you know, I don't know that we've ever turned down any trips for anything high school level, with the exception of maybe one that wanted to go to Hawaii. So other than that, I think, yeah, it's just I appreciate him breaking it down for us, kind of giving us some information. Sorry, Ms. Fowler, didn't mean to jump in front of you.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't have any questions last time, but there was questions brought up about the basketball travel. They all been answered?
Yes, sir, I believe so. The issues, I think, were just the distance. Because a lot of parents uncomfortable with their children going that far without them going along, and that created an expense, an exorbitant expense for some families. And then there was also a question about the competition level that the teams were playing when they got there. So I think this tournament they've gone to many times. I've even been a part of this trip when my son was involved in the team. It is one that has good competition. It's close enough that you can drive to it, and it's affordable for folks that want to participate. So I think we've done it several times, and it's been well received by parents and all those involved.
One thing I think, as Coach Dodgen told me, that in the California tournament, they were in one tournament, and that tournament director passed away, and they had to be put into a different tournament. So I think that was one of the questions that Mr. Hickey had brought to him because of the level of competition.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second, and we have discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is public comment.
We did not have any.
We do not have any public comment, so that leads us to, agenda item number 9, which is new business. There's no new business on the agenda. Going into old business, there's no old business on the agenda. That leads to next item, chairman comments. I'd like to remind board members our next board meeting is June 13th here at the Board of Education. We'll have our committee and policy at 5 o'clock, and then we will have our regular meeting at 6. And that's all the comments I have, other than the fact that I just say thank you all for your work and your efforts in trying to put this budget together. You know, it wasn't easy, and look forward to seeing how we come out on this. And board members, thank you for your work and your efforts in this too. So with that, I entertain a moment.
I've made all the other motions. I'll make this one
Okay, wait a
too.
minute, I just want to Thank y'all for coming tonight. I know this is your second night being out this week with us, and we appreciate it. I'll make a motion.
All right, have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Oh, wait,
I'm gonna ask you a question.
he's gonna ask you about
I'm
it.
gonna ask you a question.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Sorry.
I'll do my best.
Listen,
We'll get it.
Listen,
We'll get it.
we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
We'll get it. I appreciate the time and the confidence.
I mean,
I feel like
Hey, thank you.
Mac Meeple
Appreciate it.
has too big a budget.